Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you all to the Somerville Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Wednesday, April the 15th, 2020. It's 6 p.m. and we're having a webinar meeting tonight. We tried a couple of meetings ago. Anybody on the board, raise your hand to be acknowledged. For the record, we have 100% attendance tonight. And the first thing, we have our panel people and our planning staff people, Melissa Woods and Charlotte. I'm gonna get it right, Charlotte. Where are you? You there?
Charlotte Lee.
Lee, that's it. All right, thank you. So the first business at hand is approval of the minutes. Can we please have a motion? It's the minutes of March 25th and April 8th. Can we please have a motion from the clerk, Danielle Evans?
I make a motion that we approve the March 25th and August 8th minutes as submitted.
Thank you. May I have a second?
It was April 8th, not August.
Oh, that's April, sorry.
Thank you, Elaine. Seconded by Elaine Severino. All in favor? Susan Fontano, yay. Ann Brockelman?
Yes.
Josh Safdie?
Yes.
Elaine Severino?
Yes.
Danielle Evans?
Aye.
And Drew Kane?
Yes.
Thank you. Let's pass 100%. The next item would have been 10 Oak Street. Melissa or Charlotte, who would like to speak to that? And we'll reschedule that and have Danielle make a motion.
Yes,
think
my apologies. This is Melissa Woods. And that project was already continued to next week's meeting on the 22nd, but we didn't remember correctly, and so we asked them to appear this evening. But seeing that the case was already continued to the 22nd, they asked to appear next week like they had been scheduled. So that is their intent, is to appear before you next week.
Is a vote required of the board tonight?
No.
Okay, thank you. So that's just for the record.
Yes.
So the next case is 453 Somerville Ave.
Jack Sod and Richard Nilsson are both here. I'm going to unmute them so that they can speak.
Thank you.
Hi, should I introduce myself, Melissa?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Good evening.
Nelson. Mr. Nielsen, can you hear me?
He is self-muted, so when he unmutes himself, he will be able to speak.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Nielsen.
Mr. Nelson, if you're on your computer, there should be a little microphone button that there you go.
Sorry about that.
It happened.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Can you hear me? This is Susan.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. I would just at this moment like to take a moment to extend our condolences of the loss of your mother. And we appreciate you still coming out tonight. So our thoughts and our prayers are with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh my goodness, so sorry, Richard. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. My condolences as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. She's She lived until I think she was 87. And
Uh-huh.
you know, in the end, she had a good quality. In the end, she was in some pain. So I think it's all for the best. It's you know, it's hard. May God rest her and keep her.
Thank you. That's what we wish for you. So are you able to go on tonight?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, then you may proceed. Thank you.
Well, should we make our short presentation first? Is that the usual protocol? I think.
Yes, you're going to speak for Mr. Said, and you've got some new ideas and plans. So if you'd like to make your presentation, you may do so. I don't know if we had a time constraint on your making the presentation for Mr. Said, but why don't we go forward and we'll see what happens. Is that okay with the board? Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. So what I will say is that, you know, Jack hired me to help him make his presentation better and to help be responsive to the board and to other requirements. And so Jack has really tasked me to try to do that. So I think we've tried to work hard with Melissa. I think from the last meeting, the main difference is that we've redesigned the building to be smaller, respecting all of the required setbacks, and actually even smaller than what the requirements are. The main issue in terms of setback was there was an issue about the backyard or the rear lot setback not being 15 feet and requiring a variance. The first thing we did was to remove that. So the building has become much smaller. We've worked with Melissa on a couple of issues regarding, especially the reasons that we're here. I think I are for zoning special permits regarding the 5 units, greater than 3 units, and for parking. Now, parking is able to be provided on the site fully according to the parking requirement. We've asked for relief because the 2 options that we'll present are presented in order to try to be responsive. So we have an option that we'll show which has 5 spaces with 3 under the building, and it leaves the majority of the back lot open for landscaping and to be open. You will, I think, understand that there's an existing commercial building there that's not in very good shape. The project would remove that. So really, I think in terms of the back lot, it's much larger back lot, and we can go through that in the documents. So we've resubmitted a complete set. What I try to do is make a very simple, consistent set that presents the project. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that. So in terms of the concept for the building, what we tried to do is, you know, Jack is interested in being aligned with some of the more contemporary design projects that are being built in the square and in Somerville. And so I've tried to keep that. So we have a concept with a sort of a light sandstone colored base, which is either retail or commercial, depending on how it's tenanted in the future. And then we have a 2-story sort of terracotta component, which comprises the 2 floors of 2 units each. And then we have a penthouse. So at the penthouse level, what we've done is we've set the penthouse back in the rear so that the entire penthouse respects the dimensional requirement for 30 feet. And we've also set it back in the front 5 feet to try to make a kind of cornice. And we've used a glazed guardrail at the deck at the 3rd level in front of the penthouse. And we're doing that in order to try to bring the height and the scale of the building down and to make a kind of cornice which matches the heights of the adjacent buildings. So I think that's the project really, in terms of FAR, in terms of FAR, it became much smaller. So we've tried to redesign the building to be more efficient. We did take a little bit more space in the plan in the front, but I think it's because of the fact that the units became so much smaller. But I think it's important to restate that Jack is providing side yards of 3 feet, which are not nominally required by the dimensional requirements of the zone, and the project is respecting all of the other requirements in terms of size, height, and setbacks. So I think that's a good introduction. I'm very happy to go through and answer questions or go through drawing by drawing. I'll follow your lead, and I want to thank everyone for the time and for taking a look at the project.
Madam Chair, if I may. Just for the applicant and board's information, I have the plan set that we received on April 8th up on the screen. So if the applicant would like to direct me to scroll to different pages or to point out different things, feel free to do so, and I will do my best.
Oh, terrific! Thank you. So what you're looking at here, should we do that now? Just take a quick look at the documents.
I believe so.
All right. So this elevation, we call it the southeast pedestrian view. So this is a view from across the street, and I think I think one can see what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a kind of terracotta look building which will match the other the brick buildings in context. And what we try to do is to make a setback and the material selection at the penthouse diminish. We chose the color and the setback to sort of diminish the height of the building. So we worked with Melissa. I think we had in the beginning, Jack was really trying to get some open space in the front, and we had actually open space, but because the project has become so much smaller, we can't really afford to do actual open space at the street. So we've glazed that, and we've used a kind of glazing that's flexible so that we can open up the living spaces behind large areas of glazing. I think the large areas in glazing, because they're larger, we're hoping that they bring the scale of the building down a little bit more even than it would be if we had more smaller windows. So should we look at the next perspective? It's also, I think, so the very next one. Yeah, so that one is another pedestrian view looking back toward the center, more toward the center of the square. So you can see we have a little bit of glazing, which could make a nice storefront for an office or a retail tenant, and then above that, two stories of apartments with a penthouse, a single apartment style suite in the penthouse. Should we look again? Should we go forward?
Please.
All right. So what we did is we carefully modeled the existing condition, and what you see in this is the existing condition, which has a very simple model of the backyard, which is now filled with the existing commercial use building. And can we go forward one more? And so this is the massing, or the model of our building, which is inserted there into the site. So you can see that we've tried to keep a setback on both sides, and the depth of it, we worked hard to keep the depth of the project comparable to the depth of the other projects around it. And I think it's interesting to make a note. It's important to make a note that, Jack does own the lot in the back, and he has a very deep back lot. So by opening up the backyard, even if there are a few cars back there, I think in terms of the open space, it's overall it's a remarkable improvement. I mean, if I were an abutting neighbor, I think I would greatly appreciate the improvement, the improved access to air and light, and depending on the option that we use, and depending on your guidance, frankly, we can do we're willing to do all kinds of things with landscaping. Can we see the next, please? Thanks. So another view with the existing condition, and can we go to the next? And another view that shows the proposed condition. So, you know, I think it's important to see we've kept the actually 30-foot setback. And these setbacks that I'm talking about, the rear lot setbacks are actually the setbacks from Jack's own lot. And so the actual setbacks, the effective setbacks are more than double what's required nominally if we consider that the open lot is just given away as open space to the back neighbors. Can we look at the next? Is that fair? All right, terrific. So I see this. All right, so this is it looks like this is a site plan. I think it's became slightly out of order perhaps, but this is a site plan that shows the area of the drive to the back and the parking. Now, landscaping, we're open to suggestions on landscaping. Jack is, but this is one where, you know, we certainly would try to have 100% permeable surfaces. So we can have interlocking permeable pavements, and we can talk about, we can take suggestions on landscaping as much as possible. But this one fills out, I think we discussed with planning how to best make this retail office use feasible in the context of the square. And I think having a larger area on the ground floor is probably much more feasible. But in order to keep the 5 parking spaces that planning has requested us to keep, recommended that we provide for, we need to put those in the back lot. So can we take a look at the next? I think we're going to see another site option there, right? So this is an option where what you can see is the back residential lot, which is separate, is completely available for landscaping, green space. And then what we've done is we've kept 2 spaces outside the footprint of the building in the back lot, and those are entirely on the smaller BA zoned lot, and we put 3 under the building. And Jack has done that in order to try his best to be responsive. So there was a recommendation from the planning department to go with 5 spaces, the provision of 5 spaces. And then there was the concern of the neighbors to try to keep the back lot open. So this is the lot that Jack really, I think, wanted us to pursue in order to be responsive. However, I think I agree with Melissa and the planning department that it's a better ground floor usage to have the larger retail or office space. And you know, the zoning with the back lot parking is one of the, or that was, I should say, one of the goals of the BA zoning in the past, was to keep the parking in the back rather than to try to keep it up front. Can we take a look at the next? All right, so this is a typical floor, and we'll see 2 of these. The first one, it should be the second floor, but I think it's a fairly straightforward layout of 2 bedroom apartments, and the floor, the layout is similar on both sides. I do want to point out that in the back and on the sides, what we've done is we've used projections in order to make the bedrooms useful and really to make the project viable. We reduced it so much, it's somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 square feet of area was reduced in order to provide the rear yard setback that's showing now. So we did redesign it. Now the projections, as I understand it, they would not, because they're designed according to the limitations in the dimensional requirements of the BA zone, they would not reduce the size of the required setback. I mean, that's how I understand the regulations. So we have a small projected bay window on either side to serve bedrooms, which have been greatly reduced by the setback redesign in the back. And then we've done the same thing in the back. We've used a projection and a bay window according to the requirement, really, or according to the parameter of the dimension requirements in the BA zone. So can we take a look at the next? I don't think we need to spend too much time on the next because it's a jack plan. It's the same as the one below. The next one, if these are in the same order that we have, yeah, the next one is the penthouse. So what you can see in the penthouse, what we've done is we've set back an additional 15 feet in the back, so that the setback that we measure from the back of Jack's first lot, forward lot, the BA zoned lot, that setback to any construction at the fourth level is now 30 feet. And it's effectively more than that because it's effectively includes more again. The whole residential lot is sort of given away to the back as open space. In the front, we also provided a deck setback, and we've tried to do that in order to minimize the massing at the upper level and make the building appear shorter, to make a kind of cornice at the front the top is 3 stories. Can we take a look at the next? Right, and then so this is a roof plan, which I mean, the only new feature there is that there would be some, I anticipated some kind of overrun at the stair and elevator in the center, and so I think we're through with the floor plans. We should see elevations coming up next, building elevations. Right, and so they're the building elevations, and what we're trying to do is have a kind of open base. We've used specified in these. I should say to start with that, you know, we're open to suggestions, and Jack is directed me to try to be very responsive. But I think based on the colors and the shapes that are apparent in the context, we tried to make a kind of light colored open base with glazing in the front, and on top of that, 2 stories of predominantly horizontal. We're thinking of it as a terracotta texture and color, and we've called it out as a cementitious siding board. But the idea of that centerpiece is to pick up the brick buildings, which are in the context of the square, the more commercial style brick buildings. And then the top is very simple, sort of metal panel siding. And you know, the windows, we have the windows specified as a clad wood. So I have them generally as a kind of gray color, but we're certainly open to suggestions as far as that. We've rendered them as either gray or white, as you've seen in the renderings. So I think, unless there are questions, the rest of the elevations, I think we've tried to make them consistent, you know, with the design and the floor plans. So we can take a look at those. I'm happy to answer any questions. We've made that long elevation on the side where we have the car drive under the building. We've made that open with a columnar sort of support, and so that's a walkthrough. In the 2 different options, there is a small difference. We're able to make a really great bicycle rack for bicycle storage when we put the parking, all of the 5 spaces in the back lot, because it gives us more of the kind of walkway space that's under cover. And you know, I don't own a car by choice, and I only bicycle or take transit in town unless I can't do otherwise. And that's the kind of place where I would really want to be able to keep a bike on a nice. So I have a preference there about, you know, how I would want to go on that, but this is not about my preference necessarily. Jack's directed me to try my best to be accommodating, and that's what we've been trying to do. So I think we've seen all of the drawings in the package. I'm very happy to try to answer questions if I can, and thank you again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nielsen. I have a question for staff. Do we have people that signed on tonight as participants? Charlotte?
Sorry, I have 16 people signed on as participants tonight. Currently, 2 of them have their hands raised. Would you like me to unmute them one by one?
Yes, I'd like to go forward with the procedure we normally use. We're in the chambers, we have the presentation, then we have the public input, and then we can address. And if anybody has something, as we go along, you can raise your hand. Even if it's not in the right order, I'll acknowledge you, okay? So whomever wants to go first, have them identify themselves, please.
We're going to start with Tori and Dino. Tori,
Okay.
you are unmuted.
And we're
Awesome.
doing, hello, 1 second. Hi, this is Susan. I know you can't see me, but you can hear me. I just want to remind everybody that you have 2 minutes to speak tonight, and Charlotte will be keeping track of the time. Please proceed, and thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you, guys. My name is Tori Antonino. I live at 65 Boston Street. I'm an ecological landscaper, and I belong to a group called Green and Open Somerville. I just want to thank the developer for providing more open space and you know, making the floor plan smaller. Like, I think ultimately having more open space is going to be more important than the size of an apartment. So I thank you on that. I am interested in the landscaping. As an ecological landscaper, I wanted to ask that the developer plant native plants and have a lot of ground cover and not use turf grass. I'd have a lot of suggestions and plant ideas, and the representative mentioned being open to landscaping. So I'd like to offer, you know, send a list of plants or have a recommendation, because it's really important for pollinator health. So that's, I was wondering under what zoning this project was developed, if it's under the Union Square overlay or the old zoning or the new zoning. And if it is in the new zoning, what the Somerville Green score is. And I was wondering if they don't qualify for the green score, would they perhaps just do the calculations for our own knowledge and see if it would have passed our green score. And I just got to say, I think ultimately we need to not have these multi-story 5-unit buildings, because in Summer Vision and our goal is affordability. And even though it's legal under the zoning, I think we need to make it more stringent where you trigger the 20% inclusionary. So that's just a comment for everybody that I think it just, you know, it concerns me that that's been sort of a loophole.
Thank
I
you.
asked that the lighting, oh, done, okay.
Tori, your time is up.
Thank you. Can I
what
submit comments to you?
I have
via
a comment. Tori, can you hear
Yeah.
me?
I can hear you.
Stay right there, and I'm going to ask the staff just quickly to address your question about the what zoning it came under and about the green scoring. Who would like to address that? Melissa?
Sure. Melissa Woods, through the chair. This project is being permitted under the old zoning district because the case was appealed. So
Right.
it is being reviewed under the BA or Business A zoning district. So there is no green score requirement. There is just a landscaping requirement for this project. Landscaping can be addressed through right now, as proposed in the staff report, is landscaping would be addressed through a condition, or you could request that before choosing to act.
Thank you. I think when we come to the, if anybody has a comment right now, but I'd say we could move on, because what we could do here is, the landscaping can come after, like we've always done in the past, where we're going to do the old, as well as if this ecological landscaper wanted to get in touch with either the staff and or the applicant, they can work this out a little, she might be able to help them a little bit later. So if I get a nod from everybody's head, we'll go to the next person in the audience. Is that okay with you guys? Thank you. Okay, who's next?
Next person is Howard Franzen.
Who is it?
Howard Frazen. Yeah, I'm at 22 Knapp Street. Can you
Thank
hear me?
you. Yes,
I'm one of the neighbors. I'm right behind, literally right behind 553. As a group, we've sent a letter to you, which pretty much details most of what we have to say. I've only just seen this project, but I think one thing that wasn't mentioned, when you look at the back of the building, there's 14 windows. 4 of them are double windows. There's a double door. There are a collection of transoms over all the windows. Just from a privacy issue, the 2 buildings to the left of that, if you're looking from the back, they have 9 windows, 6 of which, 9 windows total on theirs, although 3 of the windows are stairwells. And then on the other side, the white building on the right side has 5 windows. So there's definitely privacy issues in terms of what the back looks like. Also, in terms of the parking in the back, right now, the back is all backyards for all of us, the green space. And there seems to be a suggestion that he's going to turn the back of his building into a parking lot. I guess there's all kinds of concerns in terms of privacy, in terms of health and welfare of the folks who are trying to use their backyards as they can. And I mean, just in general, I don't really understand this 5-unit thing. You'll see it in our what we wrote.
That is 2 minutes.
3 units would be completely different. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Frazen.
The next person, Madam Chair, the next person is Tristan Doherty, who is unmuted.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Doherty, go right ahead, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
All right, excellent. And I just wanted to double check that you did receive our latest letter that outlined the most recent concerns with this plan set.
we did.
Okay,
And we all got it. And I have a hard copy right in front of me, and I'm checking off your names as you're speaking.
okay, excellent. Then I probably don't have a lot to add to what was written, just sort of reiterating what Howie said, that we really just still feel that this building, it has gotten smaller in some dimensions, but it's still very much too tall. Looking at the 2 options, we're very much opposed to the option that extends parking all the way back to the lot line. I think that would basically turn all of our backyards into something that's abutting a parking lot, not nice and not preferable, that's for sure. But we would just really like to see this building be the same height as all the buildings around, which is 3 stories. And I think we've said that from the beginning, and that would prevent this building from being this sort of massive beast that's shading all of our backyards and sort of just looming over all of our homes. And that's I think the rest of our specific concerns are covered in the letter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. For the chair, could Tristan please repeat his address for the record?
It's 5 Granite Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it is, just for the record, it's apartment 2R.
Madam Chair, the next person that we have who has raised their hand is Paul Bain. He is unmuted.
Thank you, and good evening. I am Paul Bain. My address is 26 Knapp Street. I'm a signatory to Mr. Doherty's letter. I want to reiterate or reinforce what the others have said about this property, about its size and the privacy issues. I just want to add, I'm somewhat concerned about the way this will affect the streetscape on Somerville Avenue. The building is planned to go right up against the sidewalk. That will impinge on the feel of Somerville Avenue. And I wonder about in the future, as some of the other older buildings get replaced, are they too going to go right up against the sidewalk along Somerville Avenue? And what will that streetscape look like going forward if other buildings repeat this pattern? I just wonder if that's on everybody's mind and if that's the desired direction that we want Somerville Avenue to go in. The building is taller than I would like it. I have the same privacy issues. The balcony or the deck overlooks our shared space in the back of our condominium, and that is a significant concern of mine. The building looks like it's too big for the site overall, and I wish that the architect and Mr. Saad would consider a smaller footprint, a smaller building that's more in line with its neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay. So I'm going to close that portion and open it up to the board for their questions and comments. Who would like to go first? Would you just please raise your hand? Elaine Severino.
There were several comments made about the landscaping, and in any of the drawings that I've looked at, I just see a little dot. I guess I can assume that that's grass back there, or I don't know if some plantings will be there or grass, or if that will be handled through the planning staff. As to specific, I haven't seen specific things other than just a few dots back there in that space. So that was my concern.
Mr. Nielsen. Mr. Nielsen.
Mr. Nelson, I mean, we could have Melissa address it with Mr. Nelson, whatever Ms. Severino would suggest. We have no issue with landscaping. Richard?
Through the chair, Charlotte, does Rick look like he's still on the line?
He looks like he's still on the line, but he is self-muted.
Who is that?
Richard Nielsen is self-muted, so I'm unable to make him be heard. He needs to do that.
And how can we get that message to him?
I would assume repeat it into the microphone. He
Hi,
can hear
can you hear me?
He is unmuted.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, now we can.
All right. So, what I've done in terms of detail for the landscaping is I've done the calculations and reserved area for landscaping. So the answer to the question is yes. I mean, where we put a dotted infill, that corresponds to what's called for as landscaping in the table of dimension requirements in the zone. We haven't spent time doing a landscaping, doing plantings and doing detailed landscaping document. But that level of design, Jack is really, the developer is really open to taking suggestions regarding natural plantings and taking guidance on that. So I think in one of the schemes where the parking is under the building, there's if I open the table, I can see that we have a reserve which is something like 30% I'm sorry, I just don't want to misquote the number. But yeah, so in one of the options, the
Well,
percentage.
but we know that
This area
if we go forward,
Yeah.
I don't mean to speak over him. I'm sorry.
No, that's
So
okay.
I guess what the answer to Elaine's question is, and I don't know if you guys out there want to raise your hands. In the past, anytime if we've gone forward with a project, we've left the landscape and they're either going to come back in front of us and feel it's that complicated, and or we allow staff to decide on that. So I think right now we could still move forward and we can keep talking amongst ourselves to see if we're going to go forward with this project tonight. So Elaine, was there anything else you wanted to speak about or to address?
I didn't know if we as a board needed to. I was reading the planning staff, and there were 2 different suggestions about the parking, with 3 under the building and 2 out, or 3 out and 2 under. If we needed to suggest which one, I know the planning staff suggested which one they liked. Do we need to discuss which one it will be, or leave that up to planning?
No, that we have to decide on. And again, everything is on the cause and effect that we approve it and what we're approving tonight if we do so. Do we have comments on the retail size and making it smaller to get some of these cars out of the purview of the neighbors? What's the feeling of that of the board?
So did I read the retail space in option 1 is like 400 square feet? In the memo, Melissa?
Through the chair, yes, I believe in the staff report, I over-reported how much space is in the first floor because the stairwell and elevator do take up, or maybe it's just the stairwell, the space that takes up. And I was reporting a gross area, not just the area of the retail. Rick, could you let us know the difference between the 2 options?
Yes, thanks. If you can hear me okay, I'm happy to. Yeah, so so we have a gross and net square foot columns in the two tables respecting 2 of the options. So in the first option, the smaller gross area, including stair and elevator, is 860, and the net area of useful space for the retail or office is 688 square feet. In the other option where we expanded the floor plan and we used the back lot for parking, the gross area on the first floor is that 1,413 square feet, and the net area is 1,130 square feet of either retail or office. That's the ground floor commercial. Was that okay? So the net difference, the smaller numbers, are a difference between 1,130 if we use the larger provision for space, and the smaller provision, which is 688 square feet. So, I agree completely that it makes it much more viable space to have 1,000 square feet of useful retail space. It would activate the ground level and the sidewalk and all of that in a way that might be appropriate and square.
So the question to the board here right now at this juncture is, what is your preference? Is it one with the 2 cars out and 3 in, or all 5 out? That's what the board has to decide on right now before we go further. And are you happy with let's start getting down the nitty gritty because we have to make a choice on this tonight. You like what you see? Do you feel it's been sized down enough? What do you think of the architecture and the design? How is it going to blend with the neighborhood? Let's get some feedback. What about our architects? Can you speak up, please, or our city planner?
I have a few more comments unless someone else wants to go first.
Go ahead, Drew, please do.
Okay. If you don't mind flipping Charlotte or Melissa, whoever has control here, one of the street level perspectives. Might be easier to kind of illustrate what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think there is still a significant bulk to this building, and a couple of questions and thoughts that I had about that. That ground floor space, what is the grade to seal to, like, it looks like there's like 9.6 to get into that driveway, 9 feet 6 inches. Having that overhang really kind of decreases that first floor space. So I'm wondering why have the overhang on the ground floor if you're dealing with kind of a limited height clearance there? Meaning it wouldn't seem quite so compressed as a space if you didn't have that overhang. Because I think that overhang then protruding out over the sidewalk makes it feel a little bit bulkier. So that's kind of a question for the architect.
Oh, I see. Right. Well, if you can hear me okay, that dimension of approximately 10 feet is an open dimension, and that really corresponds to the sort of open, the vertical open space that is common in the square in a business zone. So when you compare it to, when you compare it to the adjacent building, which has the the residential floor starts 5 or 6 feet above the sidewalk level, I can see where it may look a little bit compressed. But if we were to, if we were to start the building, if we were to start the ground floor level of the retail space, if we were to start that at the same level as the adjacent residential building, it would not be viable. You can't have it.
That's not my suggestion. My question is more about the actual overhang and then having a recessed entry. And based on what I'm seeing of the bulk of this building and sort of the concerns of the residents and some of the concerns we've had historically, having that protrusion of the overhang to me kind of exaggerates the bulkiness of it. I would also say for the adjacent triple deckers that you have, they have much more of a vertical quality. And again, this building presents a certain bulkiness because I think you've really lended a horizontal character to this banding. So you have sort of this extrusion or protrusion rather out over the sidewalk. And in addition to that, you have this building that really is reading more as a horizontal facade than it is vertical. Two things that might help maybe bring down sort of the feeling of this being, out of scale. I don't think personally the height's out of scale. I think 4 stories seems to me entirely appropriate for Somerville Ave. But if the concern is the bulkiness of the building, those are 2 points that I wanted to make. One more point is that penthouse, the way it's drawn now, just looking at that rendering, the color of it, that dark gray, again, adds a little bit of emptiness to the building. So that might be another thing that just visually could make the building seem a little bit lighter. I don't mean in aesthetics, I just mean the point of the building.
I have a comment, if I may. Was that opening there in the front that Drew's addressing, is that where you're gonna enter to get into the basement of the building to park the car or to go around the back? What is that? What's that empty? That I don't have my plan in front of me saying what that is.
Right. Well, I think first I appreciate the comments and thank you for those. Yes. So the reason that the corner is open and that it looks like an overhang at the corner, I think is because earlier versions of the project had a door, and I think the developer was asked to keep that whole side open. So I think that contributes to the impression of it as an overhang. But I do want to stress and correct the idea that it's protruding, because it keeps the lot line with the setback that's required in the BA zone. And it's not farther forward than it should be. What we've done is,
I'm not suggesting it's going over the public right of way. My thought is, should it just be the same plane as the entry?
I see. Well, what we did is we recessed, rather than protruding, we recessed the ground floor
I understand.
where the glazing.
I understand, but it
So
gives
we
the
did that.
impression that it's a protrusion. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to give away space, right? We were trying to give away that space and that volume. In terms of the height, what we tried to do to keep the overall building, tall, we use some, I think, very typical dimensions. We use a dimension of 13 feet 4 inches floor to floor at the first level. That allows the retail space to have a really nice ceiling height, which is something like 10 feet. And inside, and that's the 10 feet that you have available at the sidewalk level. So it's completely open. Where if that were a residence, for example, you might have a 10-foot floor to floor, but you wouldn't have a 10-foot open space. So that was sort of a giveaway in a sense, right? We put the recess in and the glazing in to try to open up the space at the sidewalk. I hope
Okay,
that.
that's good. We get it. That's fine. Who else would like to speak? No one.
Sure.
Ann.
Yeah.
Ann Appleman for the record.
I just want to pick up on what Drew said. I think the building massing should maintain the street wall. I think it's more important in terms of the urban fabric that street wall be maintained. And then the backyard where you really kind of align with the neighbors, that could be a little in and out. I understand you have to balance, how much you pull from the back and the street wall. But maybe I'm saying the same thing as Drew in a different way. If you go back to the perspective rendering, of Somerville Ave, the large brick building down the street, 2 doors down, also, I think, maintains the same street wall as the 2 triple deckers. So I'd want to see that. I don't mind 4 stories, stepping back. I know that we are, our city has to get more dense. We do have to get taller. Agree with Drew on the horizontal lines. That's just facade scale detailing, but the horizontal emphasis does not help. You make this building feel really wide. I think the top floor should be a lighter material. Agree with Drew. Let me go down my notes. What is the parking requirement? Yeah.
Am I answering the parking requirement in the beginning, depending on how you look at it, is 9 spaces.
Okay.
Right, and so what we did is that parking, thankfully, parking ratios have been reduced, and so I think in the discussion with the planning department, we decided to go with 5. One per unit approximately. But can I just say that I completely agree with your concept about making the street space, and what I'd ask you to consider is in the floor plan, in the plan of the building, in the perspective, what you're seeing is that our commercial building, the front of the terracotta covered elevation, that front wall, it's in line more with the commercial building.
I understand. I'm talking about the whole building mass, the terracotta part. So whether or not you recess the ground floor, I think is up to you. But I think the overall building mass needs to maintain the street wall.
Well, I
think
that's. Sorry, that's what we were trying to do exactly, precisely. So I don't know if we've done that. The commercial buildings down the street. Right. So with the first floor, you're right. We did give away some space. There's a few reasons to do that. We thought that would be a welcome thing because it's giving more space to the sidewalk. And it makes, moving in and out of the building a little bit easier because the doors can swing out and there's plenty of room at the sidewalk. So, I mean, we recessed that to sort of give space away at the ground floor. But the mass of the building is placed exactly as you say. I mean, that was what we're trying to do very specifically in order to keep the street wall.
It's protruding beyond. It's on the property line, the second and third floors, right? So it's the street wall and the property line are different. The street wall is where the 2 triple deckers and that brick building are, and it would be nice to maintain that urban street wall. Can I go through the rest of my notes?
Yeah. Sure.
I mean, everyone gets my point, right? I'm just saying the same thing over and over again.
Yeah,
okay.
I get it.
I mean, staff, just make sure it's on the record. I understand the building seemed underscaled in terms of height, but I do see now your explanation that you're gaining 5 feet in height because you're not walking up to the first floor. It seemed like the third floor cornice should align with the third floor with the other triple deckers. And then the fourth floor is just higher and it's set back anyways. So I appreciate you trying to minimize the height, but that wouldn't bother me because again, strong cornice continuing would be very consistent with your context there.
Well, and maybe what would be useful, I agree with your point.
Madam Chair.
I have a question. I don't have the basement plan, but as I'm looking at the street plan, what I'm getting from Ann is that the retail ground floor is right out flush to the sidewalk, yes?
No, I'm sorry.
No,
It's 3 feet.
It's recessed 3 feet. And then
Yes.
above it comes out 3 feet? It's not overlapping the sidewalk, right?
Well, and above the first floor, the second and third floor front wall is placed to keep the street wall square. The commercial buildings with less setback. So it might be helpful to take a look at one of the site plans. If we look at one of those AS drawings, because what you see is that there isn't a street wall that's created by the residential buildings. The street wall is more created by the brick buildings, and that's really what we're trying to respond to. So you see, it's a very small set. It's very small setback at the more commercial-looking brick building, but the setbacks at the front walls of the residential buildings, it's not consistent. They're not in the same plane. You see, the residential buildings are built more like objects, and they're set back from the street and the sidewalk, and they don't make the street wall so much. So what I was trying to do is exactly in your vein of thinking, I was trying to strike a balance there, and I was trying to pick up on the cues from both the residential buildings and the commercial buildings, and absolutely make a building that fits and continues to make the street space and the street wall. So I mean, I agree with your point completely, and that's really what we're trying to do. I think the issue. So
what's the vote?
I guess I'm saying that's what you're trying to do. I guess I'm saying I don't see that it is accomplishing what you're proposing that it accomplished. If you go to the 3D model bird's eye aerial, I would want to see it rotated so that we see the front, not the back, the next time you're here.
If we
and
continue,
that
this
would...
is a special meeting. Can I just say something for the record? This was a special meeting that we came out with tonight. It's not going to be the whole night. We were given 15, 20 minutes for a presentation, if I remember. Danielle, can you help me with this point? I thought when we approved to have Mr. Sage come back tonight with representation, it was going to be like 15, 20 minutes. So I want to start wrapping this up. I want to know right off the top, it's worth going forward with this conversation. You're liking what you see, and what about the neighbors' inputs in the park in the back? These are major things we have to decide right now, because we've been talking now for a good half hour or so.
Madam Chair,
And
procedural question. I mean, is this supposed to be a conversation back and forth between us and the applicant? Because I can run through my list very quickly of points that I can make clearly, and then we can go to Josh and Danielle.
couldn't hear.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Let's move
Okay.
along now. Let's get your,
Yeah, is this a back and
speaking
forth
up,
between us
Ann.
and the applicant? Okay, so one is maintain the urban street wall. When he comes back, what I'd like to see is that aerial model rotated so that we're facing Somerville Ave and not the backyard. I think that would make it clear if it's jutting out or not. A developed landscape plan, and then the front elevation with the two abutters. I know there's a perspective, but I think a straight on elevation to really understand the differences in height between the abutters and the proposed would help. Thank you.
Josh? Josh? Do you like what
I
you see for us to continue going forward?
Yes, I think that this is the first time we've seen a set of documents that we can actually respond to from an architectural or urban point of view. So I think Mr. Nilsson has added a lot of value to the project overall. I agree with most of the comments that I've heard, and I won't sort of belabor them, but I also, I'm comfortable with the 4 stories. I'm comfortable with the reduction in massing. I prefer the parking under the building. And I agree with most of the feedback that Drew and Ann have given the applicant about maybe pulling away from the street a little bit, about matching some of the vertical alignments, like matching the cornice. And I'd like to see the overhang get pushed up higher so that each of the floor plates is more or less, is better aligned with the buildings adjacent to them. But generally speaking, yes, I'd be willing to continue a conversation about it, and it's moving in a direction that I feel like I could approve it in the future.
Thank you very much. Danielle?
Yeah, basically, this is the first time that we've seen drawings that help us understand even what is proposed. Before, it was really hard to even understand what was happening, but now we have a better idea. And basically, I'm trying to figure out between those 2 parking options and if there's possibly kind of a happy medium between them. Could someone tell me what was the usable square footage of the retail space for the 2 options? The first one was
the first one is 800. It started with 860 and it melts down to 688 for the retail. 688 because of the stairs and whatnot. And then if they go with the 5 cars out, it is a 1,130 square feet retail.
Okay.
Chair Fontana, can I add something?
Sure.
Melissa Woods for the record. In the staff report, the parking requirement is 11 spaces if you're using the larger retail space. So they are applying for a relief of 6 spaces, which is still a special permit range. They would not be able to remove any more parking than that because that would be a variance and would not be within their original advertisement from way back when. So they need to provide 5 or greater parking spaces.
So let me ask you a question, Danielle. I don't mean it, you come back as soon as I finish. I just want to make sure we all get this. So if they go with the smaller retail, they're required to have less spots. And I think because of the neighbors' concerns with their backyards and stuff, I think they should go with the smaller get some of those cars off of the people's backyards and that sit outside it there. They have to see cars warming up, cleaning them off and stuff like that. So I go with the smaller retail so we can get some of those cars out of the neighborhood and under the building. Danielle, you finished, hon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was a different option, 'cause it seemed it was either, let me look at it was either 5 of them outside, right? It was 5 outside or
Two.
2.
Or two. Yep.
I didn't know if there was any kind of middle ground, maybe. Actually, I'm not following these plans anymore. Okay, AE 101, that's 2 cars out, right? And then I'm looking for the second option now. I don't see it.
The next,
Could you folks show us the plan, please?
Okay, there's 2 out or 5 out. Like, is there like a 3 outside option, which would get your retail a little bit bigger?
There was.
Well, I see 2 outside and then I see 5 outside.
through the chair,
That's what I
those are
see.
2 options that are presented in front of you this evening, and I would run the parking numbers again to see if a smaller retail space would reduce the parking requirement. I sort of remember doing the calculation and seeing no difference, but I don't see my notes here, so I would do that offline.
Okay, because under on page 2 of 9 is the grid. And it's showing 11 spaces with the large retail.
Yes.
So if we go with the small retail, it does go to 5.
There is through the chair, there is a possibility that it would reduce their parking requirement by 1, which means they could drop 1 of the 5 parking spaces that
I'm
they're
sorry.
currently showing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I get you. Well, my 2 cents is that a lot of these buildings popping up in neighborhoods and condos, older houses being conflict and they're condos and they're trying to give people all this parking in the backyards. I think as we go forward with developing a Somerville Ave, a Broadway, or any of these other communities, we have to protect the residents in the old parts of the residential neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? The buffer. The people that are going to have to live with this, whether it be Lake Street, the thing we approved over there. There's no room here for a park, but they can have a nice backyard. And with just a couple of cars, that's bad enough to have to deal with that if you're in a butter. So, I agree with all the comments we've made, and I'm encouraged that staff can go back with Mr. Nielsen and take on some of these suggestions that the board has made tonight and come back with, is this what we're looking for them to take our comments and come back with an altered plan that we can go forward with? Is that what the board's looking for? Josh is saying yes, Ian? Is that what you're looking for as well? And Drew and Danielle and Elaine?
Yeah.
So we can wrap this up. Staff do we have any more comments that they can take home with them tonight? I'm pleased with everything you guys said. And I think it shows a little respect to the neighborhood as well. Any other comments? No? Okay, so does staff understand what I'm saying, that they can work, and Mr. Nielsen, the applicant speaking for Mr. Sade, can you take these under consideration?
Yes,
I'm working with you. I'm eager to see an approval. I'm willing to implement all the comment that you guys made, and if you would approve it, you could approve it conditionally on all these requirements, so we don't have to come back. But
No, you have to
I'm
come.
very
No.
sure.
Who's speaking?
Okay,
Who's
sure.
speaking?
Yeah,
Who's
This
that's
the-
Jack.
this
That's Jack.
Jack Saad. I'm the
Jack Saad.
applicant.
Can I have some order? Could I have order, please? Mr. Nielsen is speaking for Mr. Said. He's out of line, out of order.
Hello?
Here's the deal. No, quiet, please. I have the floor, please. This is the deal. You take Mr. Nielsen, you're gonna work with Melissa Woods. Take tonight what the comments everybody's made. If you feel in good faith, you can address them and come back in a week or 2 weeks, whatever works for you guys, then you can do that. If not, we're not gonna go forward. Melissa?
Okay. I think
Melissa?
I'm happy to work with the applicant, Chair.
Thank you so much. And I know Mr. Nielsen will want to work with you. Was there anything that struck you right off, Mr. Nielsen, that you might have a problem with, that you'd like us to work with you a little bit more on?
Well, that's effectively, no. The comments that I've heard do not require, I mean, they don't seem to require large changes. It seems to me as though, there's small adjustment to the position of the street wall, small adjustments to the design of the fenestration. I wonder if I could ask though, does the board have any issue with the bay windows? And if I can make the point, we've designed the side elevations to try to improve, the whole building in order to improve privacy with the setbacks, and we've redirected the side windows adjacent to the neighbors in order to point forward and backward instead of, to be pointing outward for privacy. But I think it sounds like the changes that the board is requesting are relatively minor. They're not a redesign of the scale that we've been through in the past couple of weeks. I hope I understand that. I think I do, and I think Jack.
What's your point?
Well, Jack is very willing to be accommodating. He does have a schedule issue, and maybe we can talk about that offline. Maybe there's a way that we can have some documented feedback. So
No.
Jack,
I think the board, I think it's a no. I want them to raise their hands. I think because of the history of the case and the going back and forth and the credibility issues, you're saving grace, Mr. Nielsen. You made it very clear. You made a wonderful presentation. We like mostly what we see. But as a courtesy to the board, I think we all agree is to come back just one more time so we can cross the T's and dot the I's. If that's the pleasure of the board, it's not an official. Can I see the end? That's what you're looking for.
I'm sure that's okay. I'm sure that Jack is willing to
Good.
address the comments of the board.
Okay, great. So can we have a motion then? Is the board okay with all this? No one's shaking their heads or raising their hand. Josh is fine. Ian's okay. Drew? Yep. Danielle, Elaine?
Yes.
Okay, so Danielle, could we have a motion, please? When would you like to continue this to? Staff, what do you think?
Chair, Melissa Woods again. You are meeting next Wednesday, but that also means that we need staff reports to you before the weekend. So I would like to ask the applicant if they think that they could get updated drawings in the next truly 24 hours. If not, I think the case should be continued to the first meeting in May.
May.
Right. Well, I regret that I don't think 24 hours is enough to respond, you know, and to recreate the drawings. I mean, we could certainly try to do that.
So what's the, why don't we say we'll continue it till the 22nd for the record? And if you're not being able to meet that, then on the 22nd, we'll just bump it up to the next one in May. Is that okay
All
with the
right,
board? How's that sound?
that sounds great. Thank you for suggesting it.
Okay, so Danielle,
So,
Madam Chair, could you,
22nd?
pardon me?
Continuing to the 22nd? Is that what we said?
Till the 22nd.
I make, in the matter of ZBA 2019-114-R1, 435 Somerville Avenue, I make a motion that we continue this to April 22nd, 2020 meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Elaine Severino. All in favor, Josh Safdie,
Aye.
Ann Bowman,
Aye.
Drew Kane, Danielle Evans,
Aye.
Elaine Severino,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. Thank you very, very much. I feel we're very productive, and we'll see you on the 22nd, I hope, so you can get your project going. Next case, staff, is 515 Somerville Ave. You have people we have to get in touch with to get online with us?
Claudia Mo is online with us. I am unmuting her.
And what about Mr. Proakis?
He is also online with us.
I am
Pardon
here.
me? Good evening, Mr. Proakis. Good evening,
good
Ms.
evening.
Merrill.
I am here.
Okay, great. So we'll call, is this a continuance or is it a first time new? I can't keep track. Do we have, what type of motion, or is it already open and ready to go?
This was read into the record and then continued from February 26th to March 11th to March 25th to today.
Okay, thank you. So let's call the case. I guess we're gonna go with the applicant, Claudia Morrow. Good evening. For the record, could you state your name and address?
She is shown as being online, but I am unable to mute her. I'm going to see if I can fix this. We sent her login information before the meeting has started. Apparently, it seems like she might not have logged on. So I
Can somebody step aside and call her on the phone? Claudia, I mean Charlotte? Can you call her on the phone?
I do not have the phone number, but Melissa.
Through the chair, can we, I don't know if a recess is necessary, but can we just sit tight for one moment while we work through these technical issues?
Yes, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
we've lost Ian Broppelman.
I'm here. I'm always on audio.
Okay, thank you.
ZBA, we're giving her a phone call now to see what the issue is. It seems that she did dial in and now is not present. So one moment, please. It's like the same thing as
Thank-
chasing someone in the hallway, right?
Yeah, really. Thank you.
I'm going to unmute the meeting and you are, let's see if the chair can hear you.
Such a way that I can hear you. You sound like you're in a foghorn. I'm not saying it's not my phone, but this is all I have.
Madam Chair,
You sound like you're speaking into one of those big things that they talk into.
Madam Chair, I have Ms. Merrill on my phone. Can you hear her?
Who are you talking to?
Hello. So to the, yeah.
This is not actually proper.
Charlotte, you there?
She is talking to me quite a bit. I will see if I can get her online, but it seems highly highly unlikely. I don't know whether this will work.
Excuse me.
Good, you're coughing at home and not on us.
I know it. I'm dry. I'm just dry. I'm going to get a lozenge if you'll excuse me. I'm right here in the same room. Sorry, I can't offer you a lozenge. I just got it, thank you. I have the water, but it was just dry. No, I'm good, thank you. Oh, thank you. This is our last case. Oh, great, thank you.
Sorry about that, Chair and Board. I just had a 7-minute discussion with Ms. Morrow. She alleged that we may be violating state law and American with Disabilities Act laws and various other laws by having this meeting, and that we were insufficiently accommodating her. I told her that I would request offer the option of continuing. That I believe is what she would like. I think David Shapiro and George Perlikis, who are both online, might know more about this. So I'm going to go on mute and turn it over to them. But it sounds like she will not be joining us tonight.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'd like to provide a little background, and then certainly David can provide you some legal perspective on this particular question. Just to step back a moment, the beginning of this case was an application to appeal a decision of a building inspector that was presented and scheduled for the meeting on February 26th. On February 26th, at that meeting, just before that meeting, just as we were coming up to that meeting, Ms. Morrow requested a continuance because she was ill, and the board granted her that continuance. At that time, we continued the case to the 11th of March. Now, you may recall the 11th of March was interesting because that was the last meeting we met in person. And the governor had just, I think that morning, put his state of emergency into effect, and we were starting to close things down. But at that point, we were still meeting in person, and Ms. Morrow reached out and said she didn't feel comfortable being in a large-scale meeting space. Request a continuance that at 6 p.m. right at the beginning of the meeting time, we spoke, and Chair and I spoke, and we determined at that moment that we were going to allow her one more continuance to March 25th. She didn't get the message. She showed up anyway. She stood in the hallway through the course of the vast majority of the time of that meeting. spent a considerable amount of time speaking to me, to the applicant's attorney. She said some very interesting things at that meeting. One of her great frustrations she expressed at that meeting was that she didn't believe it was fair that as an applicant, she wasn't allowed to call in and participate by phone. And she said if the governor would provide an exception to allow her to call in and participate by phone, that she would be participating by the meeting, but that due to her illness due to, I don't understand, quite circumstances that she provided to me, she didn't feel comfortable that particular evening being in the room with people. I also offered her the opportunity to participate at the end of the meeting when likely most of the public would have left. I don't know who we have left of the public here tonight, but I haven't seen a particular amount of interest by other neighbors in participating on this particular item. So I figured it would very likely be just her and the board. She declined because she said she had paper documents she had prepared to present and that they were at home. So as that meeting reached its end, or I think between cases as it got close to the end, I got up and I requested the continuance, and we signed at that point the time extension form extending the time for action, and we rescheduled for the 25th of March. As we got close to the 25th of March, Ms. Morrow started expressing concern about a couple things. First of all, the idea of participating by phone, something that she had requested on March 11th. And second, her ability to get documents to the board for the March 25th meeting. At the March 25th meeting, just before that, I spoke to you, Madam Chair. We suggested a continuance to April 15th. She requested April 22nd, also, which would have been a non-in-person meeting. She requested April 22nd, hold one second. She requested April 22nd, and that continuance date was not granted. What was granted was today, April 15th. I followed up on the 27th of March with a long email to Ms. Morrow explaining to her, based upon my understanding and her previous expression to me, that what she had that she wanted to present to the board was documents that were in paper that she wanted to be able to present, saying that unfortunately she would not go out to a copy center or a post office because of risk of social distancing, which I understand. I suggested to her at that meeting that if she'd like, that she could mail the documents to City Hall and we would scan them. I also suggested that if she only had one copy of the documents, she could mark exhibit numbers, mail them to City Hall, we would scan them and mail them back to her. I also suggested that should she not have a stamp and envelopes to do that, I would mail her an envelope addressed to City Hall, stamped. She could place the documents in the envelope, mail them to City Hall. I would have them scanned and sent back to her so that by tonight's meeting, she would have copies in front of her and you would have copies on the screen. She responded to my email rather quickly, but did not take me up on that offer and did not make any specific requests at that time. Beginning just a couple of days ago, she reached out and requested a continuance again, this time a continuance until she could participate in an in-person meeting. And that is the request that she has pending before you as the beginning of her particular case tonight. She's presented a number of emails to us requesting that continuance. She requested that we share with you, I believe, the letter that she provided explaining her reasoning for that continuance. I explained to her, I think in 3 separate emails today, that while she's welcome to participate in the meeting and present to you her request for a continuance, that it was going to be my recommendation to you that we go forward. So that essentially is where we stand at this point. You know, I could get into the details of this case. I mean, even if you choose to continue, I would like to present to you my reflection on how simple I believe this case actually is. You know, I don't know what more to do at this point. I do believe that we have given her every imaginable accommodation which I could try to give her under the circumstances which she is expressing a concern, including the ability to call in by phone, the ability to have her exhibits on screen. I guess she expressed to a City Hall employee a couple days ago that the reason she could not send me paper documents is because they were on her computer, which is interesting. I had understood previously that they were paper documents, not computer documents. If they're computer documents, she could wrap them into a PDF document and send them to us. I know she's capable of doing that. She sent us a 15-page PDF document today, asking for a continuance. So this is where things stand at this point. I don't know what further to do, but I'm happy to have you, if you have questions for me or Mr. Shapiro, I'm happy to answer them. I have some additional perspective on the merits of the case I would like to provide if you would like to hear that. And certainly it's up to you to determine if you want to go forward, if you want to hear the merits of the case and, I don't know, give her further opportunity to respond, if you want to grant her request to continue until we're all back to an in-person meeting, although I think there is some concern that we have an existing economic development priority project here that we're working to keep under construction while this is going on. But that is the circumstance we find ourselves in now.
Thank you, Mr. Proakis. I'd like to hear from the board before I weigh in. Does anybody want to, as Mr. Proakis said, and Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Shapiro's on hand, Mr. Proakis?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Hi, Attorney Shapiro, welcome.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to tell us before I ask the board what their feelings are? Maybe they'd like to know the legal aspect of it, hear it from you.
So legally speaking, I have no concerns under the statutes with the board going forward tonight as far as the legal component of it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to go into more detail. I don't have any concerns under laws that have been passed.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the board right now, do we continue this or do we vote on it? And what's your feeling? Those are our options. Am I right? We're going to either continue tonight or we can vote on this to approve her request or decline her request, right?
So I think, if I may, Madam Chair, you could continue it right now without participating in any of the discussion of the merits. Or
Okay.
if you would like, I can lay out my understanding of what her appeal is, as well as what our staff recommendation is. And after
Right.
I've done that, you could then decide either to still continue or you could decide to act depending upon where you want to be. Those I think are the options. I don't think you have to make a decision that you're going to act. I think you could make a decision to hear more and then still decide after that whether or not you're going to act.
Okay, great. So do I see heads shaking that we want to hear more from Mr. Proakis?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes, would you please fill in the blanks for us?
Yes, just give me one quick moment. I guess I would just if the chair doesn't mind, I guess I would just ask Charlotte one more time to be sure. Is Ms. Morrow not on the line at this point and has not tried to call back in?
When I spoke to Ms. Morrow, she said, quote, when she calls in, it sounds like a foghorn. And so I believe she has declined to call back in, although it is clear based on that statement that she was successfully able to call in. She just did not find it up to her liking.
Thank you.
I really don't know what more to do with this. All right, let me provide a bit of background on kind of the technicalities of how we got here, just so that you have some of the basics on the case, and then we'll decide where to go from there. I think Charlotte's going to pull up the staff report materials to put in front of you so that you can see them. And I will try my best to follow along and explain this the best I can. As you may recall, so this is the case at 515 Somerville Avenue. The first approval for this case was in, I believe, 2018. 2018. It was sometime in the fall of 2018, I believe. Well, I shouldn't really call it the first approval. I mean, there were approvals for projects on the site going back to 2008, I believe. But Those were projects that never went forward. In 2018, we got a real high quality project that was something that the staff was very excited about, the city was interested in, and it was brought before your board. It was a hotel project. It required both special permits and variances. Councillor Scott had brought it to the community. The community had worked through ways to get to trade off height and open space to try to make something work that they really liked. It had underground parking. It had, I mean, I think you're pretty familiar with the project, but it was very well supported by community members who had participated in those meetings. Then about a year later, they were getting close to construction, and there were concerns about two things. One, about some changes that they were interested in making. Some were de minimis changes that we would typically approve at the staff level. A particular portion of them were not, were more substantial. They came back to your board for that, and they also requested an extension of the variance. So the variance extension and those amendments were approved by your board in October, I believe, or I think September of 2019. And at that time, right after those were approved, there was an appeal of that variance extension and those amendments. And that appeal was filed by Ms. Morrow. And that appeal went to Land Court, I believe. David can correct me if I'm wrong there, but I believe it was to Land Court. And we looked at the appeal, and the applicant looked at the appeal, and the applicant came back to us and said, well, if we wanted to operate under the original permit and not the appeal, what would we need to do? And we said, well, you'd have to scale back any changes to those that meet the de minimis standard that wouldn't have had to have gone to the board. And you have to exercise the variance prior to the variance expiration date, which the original one, not the extension one, which is, I believe, in October of 2019. So they decided they wanted to go forward with that. They scaled back the changes substantially. We worked out with them things that were within the range of de minimis. They then filed for, received a building permit right before the variance expired, and proceeded to go forward with the construction of their project. And meanwhile, the case on the appeal on the variance extension was still pending. And we'll get to that a little later, because the new business item that's on the bottom of your agenda is a request for you to, I won't use the right words here, the lawyers will walk you through it, but the court has asked the board basically to reverse that decision, because that decision is not going to be used, so that it will close that particular case out. So it's as if you have to work with the assumption that that time extension never occurred, and that variance, and that those major amendments never occurred, and that what we're working under is the original project, and the original project with these particular de minimis changes, with the start date that worked on time. So what Ms. Morrow filed was a letter that is attached to the staff report, which I think is, if you kind of slide down, Charlotte, a bit and go to the first page of this letter. In that letter, actually, so go to page, well, I don't even know what page it actually is, but if you go not to the letter that she sent to the zoning board, but the letter that she sent to Nick, which was dated in December, I believe. There it is. She sent a letter to the Inspectional Services Office on November 22nd, I'm sorry, which was basically within 30 days after the building permit had been issued. But she did not file an appeal to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that's a very important issue. If you go to Mass General Law 40A, the underlying rules about special permits and variances and zoning and all these other rules, there are two ways that you can appeal what's going on in an inspectional services office. You can file an appeal under 40A Section 8. An appeal under 40A Section 8 is an appeal of a building permit to the, or an appeal of a decision of a building inspector to the Zoning Board of Appeals. If there is a brand new building permit filed, and you think that building permit was issued in error and there's something wrong with it, and maybe she thinks that we didn't do it right related to the variance or the de minimis versus non-de minimis or whatever it may be, you file a 40A Section 8 appeal to the Board of Appeals. And in Somerville, the way you do that is you write into the board and you file a zoning board application, and you come to our staff and you say, I'm filing a zoning board application. And I want to stress, on November 22nd, 2019, Ms. Morrow did none of those things. What she did is she wrote a letter to the building inspector, Nick Antovicchia, and she asked Nick for a zoning enforcement under 40A Section 7. And what 40A Section 7 is it's a formal request to a building inspector to enforce the building code or the zoning code, to enforce the code, basically. And a 40A Section 7 appeal is typically not done on a new building permit. It's done like, I don't know, maybe somebody's operating without a permit, or let's say I have 45 used cars in my backyard and I'm selling used cars, and that violates the zoning on my single family house lot. And someone can turn around and file a request for the building inspector to enforce, to tell me to stop doing that. And the inspector has 30 days to either cause me to act and fix that issue, or to write back to the person who made the request and say, no, your request isn't valid, I'm declining your request. So in this particular case, there is a specific court case that deals with when someone files a 40A Section 7 request on a new building permit. And that case, which I referenced in the staff report, is Connors versus Anino, in which the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court said, when the decision of a building commissioner is the issuance of a building permit, so when that's the decision you're trying to appeal, it is reasonable and consistent with the statute scheme to require the aggrieved party to comply with the route prescribed in Section 8 and 15 if the party has adequate notice of the permit's issuance and therefore an ability to meet the 30-day limitation period imposed by those two sections. In such circumstances, where adequate notice exists, we reject the plaintiff's position that 40A Section 7 affords them the opportunity to bypass the procedure laid out in Sections 8 and 15. So to be absolutely clear here, where Ms. Morrow knew a building permit was issued, made a request for enforcement to the building inspector, the request she made was under Section 7. The response she got back from the building inspector was a letter, which is on screen here now, which basically was a December letter in response to the November request for enforcement under Section 7. And that letter pointed out that a proper appeal would have been under Section 8, not under Section 7. Now, getting that letter back, the only action that is still available is, now that the building inspector has provided that action, she can appeal that action under Section 8, which is what she in turn did in January when she filed an appeal of Nick's decision, because she disagreed with Nick's decision, where Nick's decision said that she filed under the wrong section. Now, I wish Ms. Morrow was here tonight, and I am sure what she would do if she was she would lay out the substantial argument that she has put forth in multiple letters with a claim, I don't believe an accurate claim, but with a claim, that there are issues with this particular building permit. The problem is the questions that she's even asking in these documents are not ripe. They're not relevant to the issue at hand, because the only issue before the board is the question of whether or not you're upholding Nick's decision. And the only decision that Nick made as head of the building inspector's office is to determine that her 40A Section 7 appeal was inappropriately filed, because she can't file a 40A Section 7 appeal for a new building permit under Connors versus Anino. Instead, she should have filed, if she wanted to make that case, she should have filed a 40A Section 8 appeal to the zoning board in November. She didn't do that. The time frame to do that has now passed. She cannot do that. And the simple issue that's in front of you is the question of whether or not you agree with the building inspector that the 40A Section 7 appeal was the incorrect appeal to file. And essentially, the staff recommendation is saying that we recommend that you deny Ms. Morrow's appeal based upon the simple issue that that it is not the right type of appeal to file to deal with these situations. And And that's really the whole case. I mean, that, as far as I see it, that's the whole case. And it's simple, and it's that simple. So, I mean, to some extent, that's the information I have available to share with you tonight. I'm happy to answer questions about that. I'm happy to dig deeper into that. I'm happy to answer questions about the merits, the particular items she brought up, if you're interested, if I have the answers. I haven't prepared a detailed response to that because a detailed response to it isn't necessary because it's not relevant to the items in the appeal.
Thank you. I think it's very clear, and I see that you have all your samples for us to look at, your staff report. Is there anyone on the board that would like to ask George do you need further detail, or is there anything we'd like to put to the Attorney Shapiro? No? Everybody understands? So raise your hand if you have something to say. Seeing none, let the record show that everybody's taken in what George Parawakis has said for the record. Are we ready to go ahead tonight and vote?
You do.
This
is a public hearing, so Madam Chair, if you don't mind, you do need to ask, I think, if there's anyone else in the public who has to speak if you decide you're going to
I'm
go forward.
sorry. Thank you. Thank you for queuing me up. So for the record, is there anyone in the audience that would like, that have some comments or questions for Mr. Parawakis, Mr. Shapiro, or the board at all? Ms. Morrow?
I am not seeing any, this is Charlotte for the record, Madam Chair, I'm not seeing any individuals in the audience who are raising their hands or asking questions or making any indications to me that they would like to speak.
Okay, and for the record again, Ms. Morrow is disconnected. She's hung up.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. So I'm willing to go forward and vote on this tonight. I really, really feel that the interpretation we've gotten from staff from way back, the efforts of the inspectional services person, Mr. Shapiro's comments in the past, I think we've really, really tried to be sympathetic and patient with Ms. Morrow. Does anybody have anything to say they'd add, or should we make a motion to vote? Do I have yes, Josh Safdie for the record.
Madam Chair, I appreciate George walking us through it, and I understand what you're saying. Knowing the applicant and the history that we have with the applicant on the board, and considering the incredibly extenuating circumstances of the current situation with COVID-19, I'd be more comfortable waiting until we can have an in-person meeting and giving the applicant her opportunity to speak in front of us and to hear from George and from, Mr. Shapiro. I understand what you're saying. I think we'd be better served just to wait and have it happen in person. That's my feeling.
Thank you. And Danielle Evans, please.
So I haven't been over to the site. Has that construction started, or is it all held up? But there's a moratorium on that kind of construction anyways, so this isn't a continuance, wouldn't hold it up further, correct?
So, Madam Chair, if I may answer that?
Please. Yes.
Construction had started and was underway up until the day that the steps were put in place to stop construction based upon the COVID-19 pandemic. I think the difference for the development team between acting now or acting when we reach an in-person situation would essentially relate to the difference. there is a distinct possibility that we may have a situation where construction is able to start prior to the point where we are able to have an in-person meeting of a large group of people. So at this moment in time, both things are stopped. But I'm also in the midst of many conversations about how one rolls out the end of social distancing. Outdoor construction projects have people very separated from each other. They're usually working in their own backhoes. They're not quite close to each other. I could see a circumstance where in our rollout of starting times, we're able to start construction prior to being able to get ourselves in person to a meeting. I will note that one of the reasons why I want construction to start on projects like this is because in the circumstances we are in, I think at the last recession, we positioned our city better than a lot of our surrounding neighbors because we were able to have shovel-ready, underway projects that may even be eligible for federal stimulus funds for infrastructure, because we were able to line up and keep approvals in place and going. So I understand the balance here. And let me make it clear that there was some back and forth I had with Ms. Mara today about the state law that extended permits. And first of all, I think there's some confusion among some people. The state law gave boards more flexibility on permit extensions than it had before, which is good if you have a developer pushing you and saying, I must act, I must act, I must act. We can say, okay, we can choose whether or not to act. In many cases, I'm encouraging people to act, but we can make that choice, and we're in a position to be able to do that. It specifically has some language around the term permits. There's been some back and forth. We don't believe that this particular application is a permit. Now, that said, Ms. Morrow has signed an extension form and waived her rights to immediate action, but it's always very difficult when you're dealing with a permit appeal because actually there's another party who is impacted by the permit appeal, the party that's trying to do the application work. So I guess I would consider very carefully different ways that one can address this issue. I mean, I am sensitive to the issues Ms. Mara's bringing up. I would be very concerned if we had to wait till we were all back in person because we don't know when we're all going to be back in person. You know, there are a number of different choices of how we can handle this. We have an audio recording and a video recording of this meeting, I believe. You know, I have tried multiple efforts to accommodate Ms. Morrow to make sure she has a chance to put her argument before your board. She does have your argument before her argument before your board, and that she has a very long letter that she has sent to you. And we did everything possible to try to get her to participate by phone today. I'm not sure what more to do. You know, I'll answer questions as I can, but that was a long answer to your question. I'm sorry, but just want to get that thought out there.
Thank you. Danielle?
I mean, she did call in. We did hear her. So we know that she has the ability to call in. I don't know if she can, I don't know what else to do with, I mean, there's talk of all the social distancing measures potentially going into the fall. And who knows if she will feel comfortable even appearing then. So I don't know, do we want to give her one more chance?
Yeah, I was thinking, yes. I mean, yes, we've heard, you know, Melissa speak to her, so we know that she has a phone line. And I think it's just extenuating circumstances. I would give anyone, this is only our second meeting, so I would give anyone, you know, a couple of tries to use this technology successfully, whether it's just a phone call. I mean, I appreciate all the staff's efforts, but I feel like for anyone, I would extend that courtesy to try to get on a remote meeting.
So, Madam Chair,
maybe by a week or two, I don't know, but not until the end of social distancing. Just try harder with the technology with her.
One question. Is it possible that she could get like a loaner tablet or something. I know the schools are loaning out tablets to families that don't have electronic devices. If the schools are managing to do remote learning with all kinds of families, and I mean, there's free internet right now, there's devices that could be loaned. I feel like maybe there could be additional efforts to just, if she doesn't have like a tablet or something, because I believe she could log in to go to meeting on that, participate that way. If she's, because she's saying that she doesn't have a webcam or the software or a fast processor on her computer. Is there anything else that we can do to get over some of those additional hurdles that she says she has so that she can participate next week?
Madam Chair,
last
may I?
chance.
Who's speaking?
Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa, please.
I think what Charlotte and I could offer is to set up a non-meeting time to test this platform again with her. All you need is a landline telephone to participate in the way that we tried to reach her this evening. You know, of course, a flip phone would work as well. She will not be able to see what Charlotte is presenting right now, but that is something that's already been emailed to her. So we could do that if she's willing before next Wednesday. So if you chose to continue it, we could at least report back on how that went.
Josh, what do you think of that?
If I may, so I think that your next meeting is a week from now, your next meeting is a week from now. So I think that her opportunity to participate, you know, we can try some things over the course of the next week. I feel like there are so many things I've tried to set this meeting up. What happened last time is we had 2+ weeks of silence and then 4 days of emails. But I think that what at a minimum, at an absolute minimum, I have nothing more to present. So we can provide the audio or video of this meeting, which is my entire argument. She can use the week to respond in writing, to provide exhibits, to mail exhibits, to email exhibits, or to try to participate by phone or try to participate by computer. I am willing to. I am sure Melissa and Charlotte can work to try to provide what is necessary in order to make that happen. And then a week from now, with or without that, you have the staff's case on this, and you can make whatever decision you'd like to make at that point.
Okay, because you know, this is new technology for a lot of people, including myself, and it's not the best. I mean, people falling in, falling out. You can see them, you can't. You can hear them, you can't. Like she said, it sounds like a foghorn. So what this whole experience has been teaching us is tolerance and patience. And she only wants it one way. We've all been affected by this virus. I have 2 businesses that I've not received a dime for since the Friday they closed me down, which is 3 or 4 weeks ago now. You know, and you keep trying everything else. So I see it's a majority of the board that they're willing to go the 1 more week. We'll go the 1 more week, and that's it. I think, you know, if everything goes well, it's too bad if she doesn't like that she can't see a picture. It's too bad if she doesn't like the sound quality. That's the way it is. This is what this is. So in all due respect, I understand the different technology. Like Elaine has gone to great pains to get another computer so she could participate. The first time she had no video, just audio. Now she went her effort. I'm doing my effort. I updated my stuff here. You know, we're all trying, and we are trying for Miss Morrow as well. And so I see it's the majority with, I think Ann made it clear, but you know, we also have to remember the economic fallout of this hotel that wants to get built. And if there are other construction sites going on all over, and there's things that can be being done with social distancing. So I think the one more week for her to get herself together, let the girls, I don't mean that, I should say the ladies, they're professionals, set her all up, see what they can do, like they did with me. They tried setting me up when we first started. So I think what the board is saying, Mr. Proakis, is they would like to continue it just for one more week. Am I right, everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes. So, Mr. Proakis?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I mean, I will commit the staff to do what we can over the course of the week to try to provide the opportunity for Ms. Mara to respond to my presentation, the staff report, and the information she has provided to date, so that you're in a position to act. That's what we can do.
Great. So we're going to have a motion then, I take it, from the clerk to continue this until April 22nd. And Mr. Shapiro's still on board here?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, can you hear me
Yes.
okay?
Yes, I can hear you now. So what we're going to do, that's okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay. Danielle, would you make a motion, please?
In the matters case AA 2020-0001, 515 Somerville Avenue, I make a motion that we continue this to the April 22nd, 2020 meeting.
Seconded by Elaine Severino. Roll call. All in favor? Ian Brockelman.
Aye.
Danielle Evans.
Aye.
Drew Kane.
Aye.
Josh Safdie.
Aye.
Elaine Severino.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano, aye. The record show it's unanimous to continue until April 22nd, 2020. Thank you, Mr. Proakis, very, very much. I know you're trying to keep us all well informed here. We appreciate your time in, Mr. Shapiro's.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is one more item sitting on the agenda tonight, a new business item related to 515 Somerville Ave that we'd like your action on if the board sees fit to do so.
Okay, and now let's see on the under other business.
Yes,
Danielle,
it's on
could you
screen.
read that? Yep, Danielle, could you read that into the record, please?
Sure.
Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, since this isn't, I'm kind of confused what this action is. So you just want me to read the agenda item? It's not something that needs to be opened, right? Or
It is not a public hearing item that needs to be opened. Reading it may be helpful just to provide context to anybody who might still be on phone though, but that's not a necessity like reading a new public hearing item.
so I can read it. Pursuant to an order and judgment of the Massachusetts Land Court dated March 19th, 2020, in the case of Claudia Murrow versus YEM or YEM, Somerville Ave LLC et al. Land Court miscellaneous case number 19 miscellaneous 000434 RBF. Applicant YEM Somerville Ave LLC seeks an annulment of the ZBA's August 21st, 2019 decision related to the project at 515 Somerville Avenue and identified as board decision number 2018-122-R1-7/19 on the basis that the applicant has abandoned the rights granted under the decision. Applicant also seeks to withdraw the application, which sought the relief granted in the ZBA's said August 21st, 2019 decision.
Thank you, Danielle.
So,
Mr. Proakis?
yes, just a brief introduction to what's going on here. To clean up the record and end the land court appeal against the time extension and non-de minimis changes to the case at 515 Somerville Ave. The goal here would be to have the board vote to annul the August 21st decision and also to accept the withdrawal of the application that was for which the relief was granted on August 21st. The court has determined that should the board do this, the court will then close this case out and it will then kind of return the record to just having the original 515 case on. This is not a public hearing item. Mr. Shapiro can answer questions about it. I think the developer's attorneys are on as well if you have questions for them. But the basic request here is to take those votes to undo that case per the request of the land court. They put a time block on in which they would like that done, and that will let them wrap this case up.
Madam Chair, this is Charlotte speaking. I would just like to confirm that Adam Dash and potentially other attorneys, but definitely Adam Dash is on the line and willing to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Dash.
Sorry, he's muted. Give me one moment to unmute him. He is unmuted.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear
Good
me?
evening, Mr. Dash. Welcome.
Good. It's good to see all of you after such a long time.
I know.
You can't see me, but I have the privilege of not having to get dressed, so wonderful.
Yeah. So is there anybody on the board here that have some questions for the attorney? No?
It's really two motions, just to be clear, because of the way the court order came down. That there would be a motion to annul your prior decision approving the revision from August 21st, 2019 and ZBA 2018-122-R1-7/19. Once you annul your approval, it's now open again, and then we would request to withdraw our application under that revision. This is just the revision of 2019, not the original 2018 approval that the building permit was issued under. The revision's under appeal, which was never in the revision. So there are two things you need to do. One is annul your old decision.
Anyone having trouble hearing this?
Yes.
I can hear you fine.
A little bit, but I hear it. Basically, he's saying that we have to take a vote to annul the revision decision, and then we have to take a vote to accept or withdrawal of the application.
That's right.
Correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Right.
So what was the application number? We have a decision, so is it the same as
the case number is the same for the decision and the application.
Okay. Okay.
Right, so motion?
Yes, please.
I make a motion that we annul ZBA decision number 2018-122-R1-7/19.
Second.
Seconded by Elaine Severino. All in favor, say aye by a roll call. Ann Brockelman.
Aye.
Danielle Evans.
Aye.
Drew Kane.
Aye.
Josh Safdie.
Aye.
Elaine Severino.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show it was unanimous.
And I also
Now
make
we
a
have
I make a motion to accept the withdrawal of the application, case number 2018-122-R1-7/19.
Second.
Seconded by Elaine Severino. Again, roll call, all in favor. Ann Brockelman.
Aye.
Danielle Evans.
Aye.
Drew Kane.
Aye.
Josh Safdie. Elaine Severino.
Aye.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show it was unanimous, 6 votes. Now, Is that the end of this business, Mr. Boakis?
It is my understanding that that is the end of that business.
Thank you, Mr. Dash.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for listening to all of us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I guess if there's no other business, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Elaine Severino. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Aye.
Thank you. Do I have to do roll call for this too?
Every
Might as
vote.
well. Drew Kane,
Yes.
Danielle Evans,
Aye.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
Josh Safdie, Elaine Severino,
Aye.
Aye.
and Steve Fontana. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Stay safe. And we'll see you on the 22nd.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Bye.